Hi, how are you? How are you guys doing today? So it's an official announcement that Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic will be playing in the Western and Southern Open and the US Open this year. So it's quite interesting. What do you think about that? Sorry about that. So yeah, I just want to tell you Djokovic and Nadal have entered into the US Open 2020 and a Masters 1000, usually in Cincinnati, are the Western and Southern Open. So it's a fact, it's done, it's decided. And a lot of people were saying that Nadal would save his body to play on clay. But I have posted a video about that, and what I said have come true. So partly I'm here to gloat and to let all the others know they're wrong. People in the media, people online, all kinds of people. But another part just to inform you that the decision has been made. Um, they put out the entry list of players who decided to enter into the Western and Southern Open Masters 1000, usually in Cincinnati, moved to New York, starting on the 20th of August. And Nadal, Djokovic, Thiem, Medvedev, actually 16 of the top 20 players are there. It's only Federer who took the rest of the year off, Gal Monfils, Stan Wawrinka, and Fabio Fognini. So 16 of the top 20 are there. Serena's playing on the women's side. But yeah, so that's that. So that's the way it is. And I just felt like anyone who thought Nadal would miss the US Open, it was just pure insanity in my mind. Like when you look at it, Wimbledon and the US and the French Open are back to back. So Nadal goes through a whole 2 month clay season, ends it with a Grand Slam, the French Open, then goes back to back at Wimbledon. It's been 2 to 3 weeks later, depending on when. So why would he not play those two Grand Slams with 2 weeks in between now that he's fresh after 6 months off, as opposed to the end of a long clay court season? And why would he lose his second best Grand Slam? His last four Grand Slams were outside the French Open, all at the US Open. He's won two of the last 3 years. And then to miss an opportunity like that would be a bit crazy. And then I've said in my previous video that the top players are getting the first round off the French Open. So that means it's 2.5 weeks after the US Open, and they need to win 6 matches to win the tournament as opposed to seven. So that helps. And also, the hard court's harder on your body. You're better off to do those first up while you're fresh. And then if you get a bit of aches and pains, you want to go to the softer clay. So again, that's ideal for Nadal. But yeah, and then you look at his history leading up to the French Open. He plays for 2 months almost every week. So we know that he likes to play lots of matches leading into the French Open. He hasn't played for 6 months. So that would make sense that he'd want to come back every week if he can, or most weeks, and that's what he's doing. So that just fits his history of that, and also his history of playing two Wimbledon French Open back to back. Always does that, and like I said, it's easier now because he's fresh, and it's easy because the second one is on clay, which is easier on your body. So it's just clear to me that Nadal wouldn't miss the second most successful Grand Slam in his career to save himself for the French Open, especially when he's one Grand Slam behind Federer. Like he's the one of the most experienced, coming off long layups and layoffs from the game and coming straight in to play. So he likes the US Open, but the problem is he's been injured a lot. And like he won it in 2017 and 2019, but 2018 he was injured, and many years he's been injured because it's on the hard courts, the end of a long, hard slog. of a year. And then, like I said, that whole clay court season, Wimbledon, lead up tournaments to the US Open, and then his body can break down on hard courts at the end of a long year. But this year, coming off a 6 months break, to be more fresh than you would ever be, it's the ideal situation for Rafael Nadal to say, my body's fresh and ready for the hard courts compared to other years. So I think that gives him a better chance than any other year, the way it is, as opposed to the end of a long year. And then to say, well, if you're playing all this stuff back to back, after you've been back for a while, maybe you get some aches and pains, and then you go to the softer clay. Um, Again, the order of having the US Open first while it's fresh, and then the clay, and leading into the French Open, that's a good thing. But Rafa will always play. He will not miss a Grand Slam just because there's 2 weeks between them. He just won't. He's never done it with Wimbledon. He won't do it now. The only difference is he's fresher, and he likes to have a lot of matches leading up to the French Open. And if he's playing well at the US Open, he wins it or he's in the final. It doesn't matter that he didn't do it on clay. He's naturally good on clay. So if he gets his level to a high level on a hard court, and he's already in form, and then even if he doesn't have much practice on clay, you move this same person onto a surface that suits you. You don't need to practice. You don't need to build up your form. Your form is there. It's just a change of surface. So now this great form on a surface that doesn't suit you that much is good. It's just going to be even better when you switch. It's like anyone's like that. Federer, if he was playing well on clay, if you suddenly said, "Well, tomorrow we're going to grass," you'll just be better. Because if you're good on your worst surface, you'll be great on your best, and that's the same for Nadal. If he gets his level good at the US Open, when they get to clay, then he'll be almost undefeatable. And if it's not great, he'll still be better. But whatever happens, building your game to a high level on a surface that doesn't suit you, and then switching to one that does, it's very easy. But if you're switching from a surface that suits you to doesn't, which it usually does, from French Open to Wimbledon, that's much harder, especially when you're tired, you need practice on it. But this is a much more easy situation with a long rest, the US Open hard courts, while your body's fresh, going to the French Open. And there's so much at stake, 19 Grand Slams. The US Open and the French Open are his two best Grand Slams. Um, just in the last 3 years, he's won the French Open 3 years in a row, and the US Open 2 of the last 3 years. And being one Grand Slam behind Federer, two ahead of Djokovic, I mean, he was always going to play. And it's a much better situation physically than that long clay season, then moving to grass. Like I said, fresh for the hard courts, and then at the back end of the back to back, the easiest surface on the body, clay. So he was never going to miss this opportunity to play at the US Open. And like I said, when you're coming off a 6 month break, that's something that's abnormal for most players, but he's got more experience. So I think the fact that everybody's cold off a 6 month break, Nadal's going to do a better job to adapt to that because of experience, and his body's going to be more fresh to deal with the hard courts than it usually is. And then, like I said, the clay after that, he can play with aches and pains on clay and be okay. So it's much better going that particular way that they're doing it rather than the French Open first. So, and then Djokovic is there, almost all the players, like I said, 16 of the top 20. And it's good that, and then also I would say if we're going to play the French Open and the US Open, that this whole pandemic, it suits Nadal or more than anyone, I would say. Now, firstly, because you get to come back to two Grand Slams after out for 6 months, he's done this more than anyone, so he's got more experience, so that helps him. He's fresher for the hard courts. He gets to come back to his best two Grand Slams, and then as far as him getting older and not having as many opportunities, he's relaxed his body for 6 months, but he hasn't lost a lot of Grand Slam opportunities. Just one, which is Wimbledon, which he was clearly the third favourite, and most likely it would have went to either Djokovic or Federer. So in this Grand Slam race, with it being so close, all that he's lost is basically one Grand Slam that would have been credited to his rivals, which would have made it harder for win. But now by missing Wimbledon, you're deducting a Grand Slam from either Djokovic or Federer that was pretty much guaranteed. And then you just come back and play your best two Grand Slams. And then you're fresher to play them. And as far as extending your career, this 6-month break can help that, but then you don't miss opportunities to win Grand Slams yourself because you're only losing one, which would have actually hurt you because it would have went to either Djokovic or Federer. I believe this year's Wimbledon would have been Federer's last chance to get to 21. So not playing it guarantees Federer will never get any more, basically. And then Djokovic only two behind. With Federer being aged, Djokovic was probably more likely than Federer, but Nadal would have been third favourite. I'd say by 2021, Nadal would have a better chance at Wimbledon than Federer due to the age situation. But not this year. I would have given Djokovic as first favourite, followed by Federer, followed by Nadal. But just to say, we're not going to play a Grand Slam one of your rivals would have got in this Grand Slam race. We're going to let your body rest for 6 months. That'll help extend your career, and you get to come back fresh and play your best two Grand Slams. And the one that's harder on the body, you get to do while it's fresh. And then once your body gets run down a bit, then you get to go to the softer clay. It's almost like Nadal couldn't have scripted it better. And then Federer saying that, well, we're only going to miss one Grand Slam this year, and it's the one you have the most chance to win for the rest of your career, and that's cancelled. So Federer just decided, if you're going to take away my best Grand Slam, I'd rather rest my body for the rest of the year rather than play his worst two slams, US Open and French. And then for Djokovic, it's his worst two Grand Slams too. Wimbledon, Australian Open are his best two. And like I said, Nadal is the one with the experience coming back after long breaks. But I mean, as far as who all this suits, it's Nadal. As far as as far as it's Nadal, yeah, and as far as like having the best players there, that we're going to see two Grand Slams, the French and the US Open, and it looks like we're going to get everyone or just about everyone. I think Stan's not playing because he was just resting and enjoying food and pizza and all of that, and I think he's put on a bit of weight, and he won't be ready to come back by the US Open because he wasn't even expecting it. He tried to train the last minute, so he wants to give himself extra time and get in fitness for clay. He definitely couldn't do slams back to back. But if I had to say what will be Nadal's schedule, I would say at the moment he's looking at the Cincinnati one, followed by the US Open, which will be 3 weeks in a row, Madrid 4 weeks in a row. But he's willing to do that because then he gets about 10 or 11 days off before the French Open. So then he's coming into the French Open with a clay court tournament under his belt, 4 weeks of tennis. So you can't say he's not ready to go match fitness, but at the same time, 11 days off. And now having to only win 6 matches to win it, I think that's what he wants. That'll put him in the best situation to win the French. But he's also got a good chance to win the US Open, coming straight over the long break, and he's the experience of doing that. And then getting that one warm-up tournament in and having a chance to build up in the first week of the US Open, he has a great chance there too. But I would say that if I had to look at what's going to happen, I would say that the US Open, I would really like to see Nadal versus Djokovic because Djokovic is overall better at hard courts, but Nadal has more US Open wins. And Nadal's beat him in the head-to-head at the US Open 2-1 and 4-3 in total championships. But then Djokovic is much better overall on hard courts. So I think that would be a really good 50-50 match. But at the French Open, obviously Nadal would be favourites. For Thiem, I would say he has a better chance at the US Open. He's played all these exhibition. He's totally match fit, ready to go. And but the problem is when you're talking about Grand Slams back to back, US Open and French Open, Thiem, a guy who's played all year and made himself exhausted, and now has to come back and continue to play an exhausting schedule. By the time we're playing the second week of the French Open, I think he's going to be a bit run down. And that's the time he'll need to be fresh to challenge Nadal. But Nadal will be more fresh than him because this whole time he was running his body down in exhibition. Nadal was fresh and getting himself ready to deal with this tough schedule when they come back. Whereas Thiem had a tough schedule then, and it's going to continue to be a tough schedule. So by the second week of the French Open, I would say Thiem could be run down. And then it'll be a worse situation than normally how they go into the French Open. But for the US Open, it'll help him because he's got all these matches, so he'll also be ready to go. So I think he's got an advantage to come out of the break well, and so does Nadal because he's done it so many times. So that's what I think. But Djokovic, I mean, you've seen like 2018, he won Wimbledon and made this big comeback, but he took the second half of 2017 off. And then it took him 6 months from January 2018 to July to sort of recover from the 6 months out of the game. So it's proved when he has 6 months off, he gets his game back, but it takes some time. Whereas I would say even Nadal has more experience, does it better. And one good example of this is 2013. Nadal won the French and the US Open after 8 months off. Yes, he came back in February, so he needed a bit of time. Then another example is 2019 Australian Open. Nadal, um, Nadal was playing, and he had 4 months off. Didn't even get a warm-up tournament, which he'll get this time through the Cincinnati Masters or the Western and Southern, and came straight into a Grand Slam. 4.5 months without an official match, and made the final. And his first 6 matches after the break, he won them all and didn't drop a set yet. And yes, you could see he was exposed for not playing in the final against Djokovic, trying to beat his best rival Djokovic at his best Grand Slam at the Australian Open. And Djokovic played one of the matches of his career. Then Nadal really did look exposed for the 4 months out of the game. But it took someone at the highest level. But the difference is this time, everybody's coming off a 6 month break. It's not just a situation where Djokovic is dominating for 6 months, winning everything, while Nadal is out of the game for 4 months, and Nadal's got to come straight off a 4 month break and beat a guy who's been winning everything, playing for 6 months, and just beat him in his best Grand Slam. Not going to happen. But this time, it's not a case where one guy's been playing and winning everything and the other guy's been completely off and completely rusty. It's like both Nadal, Djokovic, and everybody. But the fact that someone could play their first tournament in 4.5 months and get to a Grand Slam final without losing a set, that shows that he can just get it going from the first tournament. So, like I said, it suits him and Thiem because Thiem has played a lot. But Djokovic, we've only seen him out for a long period of time once, and it took him 6 months to get his game back. So we don't know if this will be different because this is not an injury break. It's a forced break, so everybody's body wasn't injured, so they could train or do what they want. So that could help Djokovic because he was instead of injured, he was training the whole time. So that could cause him to come back better. And then for Nadal, it's even easier if you're not injured because you can train most of the time. You can rest your body. Your body's not actually recovering from an injury. You're just resting a healthy body. So it's obviously easier to come from a time off. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know we'll be having the US Open and French Open back to back. And for the Grand Slam race, this is really disadvantaging Federer because his best two rivals, who are 1 and 3 Grand Slams behind him, has 2 shots to win Grand Slams without him. Djokovic gets one on hard court, Nadal one on clay, and then Nadal's best 2 slams. So that's really not good for Federer. It could mean either um, Federer is tied with Nadal at 20 slams when he comes back to start next year, and Djokovic has 18 because he won the US Open, or it could mean Nadal has overtaken him and he's at 21, and Federer is at 20, and Djokovic is still at 17. So I think that's what's likely to happen to me, and that means basically Federer's almost lost the Grand Slam race either way, because I think Nadal will win the French Open. I think the US Open is 50-50 between Nadal and Djokovic. So those are the likely options depending on what's happened. But let's hope we'll see Djokovic and Nadal in the US Open final. I'm going to make more videos. I've got an interview with Federer. I'll be going live to Switzerland for that coming up. Subscribe, like the video, give it the thumbs up, all of that. And I'll see you guys soon for the next video. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are in the world, and just enjoy life. Bye for now.